We're here to basically share the story. So the story of Memphis Belle's out there. A lot of people know it exists, but there is a group of people out there who their level of passion and their level of interest in a subject like this really dives in, and that we're hoping that if we can bring more of an in-depth look at this plane, it'll generate interest, and the same mission that you guys have is the same mission we have, is to keep this stuff alive. And if the interest level kind of drops with the newer generations, then it will fade away. And yes, people can come here and see it at the museum, but what's the point if if people know that it exists is one thing, but to generate the interest and get that popularity, like the pulse, keep it going. That's why we're doing this. That's why we're bringing this footage out there. So again, this is a very emotional moment for me. I've known about this plane since I was a kid, and I never thought I'd even see it, let alone be inside of it. Talking with you about how it works. So, getting into the nuts and bolts, B-17, pilot on the left, co-pilot on the right?
Yes.
Okay. Real quickly, like why, for those who are very new to B-17s, why do you need two pilots in this plane?
For the most part, there's too much going on for one person to comprehend and react quick enough. And it helps the pilot a lot to have somebody else that can, look at dials, flip switches, do things like that, especially when flak's going off and stuff like that, and that stress is just added more. Yeah. It really is a two-person job to fly one of these things. The other thing is, these are not easy to fly. It is all cable and pulleys. There's no electronics that run to the flight controls. You're pulling a cable against the wind.
Yeah.
You have however fast you're going. Plus whatever wind you've got, you have to fight that force with just cables. And having two people, especially if you have battle damage and your flight controls aren't working all the way, having two people really helps, take some of that. So
just
off.
Physical strength. You're essentially both doing a workout here.
Yeah, and one person could fly the airplane, but if you had battle damage or something like that, it'd be helpful to have two people pull both back on the stick if you needed to get out of a dive or something like that. The other thing is in case somebody gets killed, or so wounded that they can no longer operate the airplane.
Yep.
It's beneficial to have two people that can fly it.
Okay. A study was done from November 1942 till December 1943 that studied specifically heavy bombers above Europe for the Army Air Forces, and the study was done for medical support and with the goal to consider the crew members in the plane most susceptible to both injury from ground flak and fighter interceptor aircraft. And the goal of the study was done to look at which places in the plane would be best suited to add additional armor to protect the crews. Once the study was done, it outlined the most susceptible to injury and death positions within the aircraft. Of the 1,293 incidences of wounds or death within the aircraft, the pilot suffered 93 recorded, making them with the percentage of total loss at 7% within the aircraft, whilst the co-pilot suffered 68 with only a percentage of 6, putting them towards the bottom end of the most susceptible or most dangerous spots in the aircraft. So we're standing right behind the co-pilot and pilot. So yeah, tell us about first and foremost, like these guys are essentially the officers and in command of the plane.
Yeah. So they would be in command of the plane. The left seat is the pilot seat. He's the pilot in command, and then the right seat is the co-pilot seat. So he would be his secondary.
And I see separate controls on different sides. So even though pilot, co-pilot, they still have individual responsibilities.
Yeah, it's laid out so that with two pilots they can have separate roles that help each other out. Like, so for example, the intercooler is on the co-pilot side. All the starters to start the engine are on the co-pilot side here. The fire extinguishers are on the co-pilot side. A lot of the radio equipment is above so that both of them can work on it, and then the controls to actually fly the airplane are positioned in between them, so either one of them can fly the airplane.
So without getting into too much detail, like give us the basics of flying this thing.
Yeah, so we've got our throttles, which are separated into T1, T2, T3, and T4. So you could individually throttle back, or you could throttle both sides. One side, I mean both engines on one side, and then both engines on the other side, or you could do both of the inboards or both the outboards. So then above that, you have your mixture controls, so you can lean out or enrich the fuel mixture that's going into the cylinders.
Yeah.
You have your propeller pitch controls below the throttles. It turns the propeller to control how much bite you're getting with each rotation. The superchargers are above to the left of the lean rich controls, and then up on that panel you have your cowl flaps and all that, like your landing gear.
So we got a little access hatch here that just opens straight up to the outside of the plane, and Zach is telling me that they're shooting flares out of there, right?
Yeah, that hole, and then there's a hole in the nose plexiglass that they would fire flares from.
Okay. In what situations are we actually using the flare system? Like I do know that upon landing they would shoot out flares to indicate they had wounded on board, so they would have a priority landing.
Yeah, another instance would be if some B-17s were in the Pacific doing rescue for shot down pilots or crew members of sunken ships, and that would just be a way to let them know that you saw them.
Okay.
Would be fire a flare.
Yeah.
That box right there?
This one?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they hook up ground power. We'll go outside and I can show you their ground power.
Oh, through here?
Mm-hmm.
Are you filming that, Rich?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Because, yeah, you see Memphis Belle solenoid bracket and cover with a date from 02, and then it kind of links into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So we got crew oxygen systems. Is this just for the forward crew in the plane? Like pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, navigator?
So it's all interconnected. So you could use all of it. But there are other bottles. Like if you look up behind the cockpit, in the cockpit there are other bottles too around the top turret.
And then this is a good position to see, like, you guys have even got the armor plating.
So this is your armor plating. They would put it in the bulkheads to protect the crew and critical systems. But other than this and the armor plating that would be on the back of the back of the bulkhead behind the pilot and stuff like that, all this skin around is just aluminum. So there is no real bulletproof or shrapnel proof factor to anything other than these plates.
And do you know much about, is this AR-500? Do you know much about what this actually is and what it would stop?
I don't specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but it would stop at least a 7.62, a 50 cal.
Okay.
So the pilot's controls, you can see there's wires coming up in here, and that's for the push to talks.
Oh, from the steering yoke.
Oh, yeah, when you go up there, you'll see there's buttons on there, and one of them is the push to talk.
Yeah.
So they can press a button on their on the yoke and
so
activate their mics.
Speaking of electrical, if you can run through the electrical system on the plane briefly, like, is every individual component grounded to the body?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything's grounded.
So we're going to talk about a very unique individual for the Belle, Stanley Ray. So whilst he wasn't considered a crew member of the Memphis Belle, he flew on the plane. What did he do?
He did. So he was the commander of the 91st Bomb Group, and as the commander, he actually flew some combat missions. And he flew 2 missions on the Memphis Belle, and as the group lead. So he'd be in the right-hand seat, and so he's also functioning secondarily as a pilot if need be, because of course he was a pilot as well. Right hand is co-pilot seat. That's right. Yeah. So he was functioning as the co-pilot as well, and he was there to command the formation during the mission. We also had the deputy group commander flying the Memphis Belle, leading when the Belle was group lead, and also the squadron commander, the 324th Bomb Squadron commander, also flew a mission on the Belle as well. And Stanley Ray was really an amazing individual. He had a tremendous weight of responsibility. He was sending young men off to die in some cases, and yet in a lot of the photos he's smiling. He had a great sense of humor, led from the front, went on combat missions, took those risks just like his men. Of course, after the war, he stayed in, and he ended up retiring as a general officer. Wow. And what's wonderful is General Ray donated a huge collection to the museum in the 1970s, and that's how the museum is able to display these great artifacts, because he donated them so long ago.
Wow. Getting back to such a high-ranking officer in the co-pilot seat, but he's the group commander. Exactly what's he doing in relation to that role?
As the group lead, a lot of times when they're flying, it's radio silence.
Okay.
So he can't say anything, but he's there to exercise command if need be. If something goes wrong, to make the decision to go back around on the target, to hit an alternate target, things like that. So he's there to provide command on scene if needed. But he's also functioning as the co-pilot as well, because he's a pilot, and that airplane really kind of needs two pilots. So.
Interesting.